Since the arrival of Gran Turismo 7, I've spent quite a lot of time in this chair, and I do literally mean this chair. It's the RS6 from GT Omega, and while the chair is very good, I couldn't say the same about my sim rig, which, due to lack of space at the time, was custom built by myself. Now, when I came to decide to upgrade my rig, obviously, best choice was to go with GT Omega's sim rigs, and specifically the ART or Art rig, which not only fitted my budget but also fitted the space I got available. And so I decided to make a video showing the build of the chair and giving my thoughts along the way. Don't worry though, you haven't got to sit and watch me do the entire build. I've done it as a time lapse, and that's a lot better for you guys. But I will, however, just add some notations and a little bit of voiceover through certain parts of the video that I think something came up that needed explaining, or something that I found difficult, just so you guys get a rough idea of what I was doing and when I was doing it. First of all, let's start off with the packaging. Well, nothing wrong in that department. Yes, the item was heavy, 26 kilos, but it was all well wrapped. The box was sturdy and everything inside was either wrapped in cardboard or wrapped in bubble wrap or wrapped in both. So, as far as the packaging and the delivery, no worries whatsoever. Next thing was to take everything out of the box and check that everything was there. And as far as the actual parts were concerned, yes, everything was there and it all looked fine. There wasn't, however, any instructions in my box. There was a list of contents, but no instructions. Now, I'm not sure if this was intentional and there aren't actually meant to be any instructions in there, or if it was an omission and just my particular package they were missing. However, it's not that much of a hassle. It was very easy to find a set of instructions on the GT Omega website. Very easy to find, easy to download, and very easy to follow. And just before we start the time lapse, if I could ask if you guys would hit those like and subscribe buttons, it would really help the channel and I would really appreciate it. Thank you. Now, the first part of the build is nice and easy. It's the front section of the rig and consists of just the two side pieces held together with two cross beams, 4 bolts, and you're done for that little bit. Now, I will just add at this point that you don't actually need any tools for this build. The few tools that you do need are already provided by GT Omega in the kit. Next part is to attach the plate that you will later mount your pedals to. Now, what I will suggest here is be careful when you first attach it. If you don't line it up in the middle, it will stick, as you see there. So just adjust these 2 bolts to line the plate up centrally and you're good to go. Next is the section that holds the steering wheel mount. First of all, slide in the 2 bars, one either side, and then attach the plate that will hold the steering wheel later on. This is simply attached by 4 bolts, 2 either side, tightened up with the Allen key. Once that's done and they're all tight, just give it a little test just to make sure that it still moves and you're good to go. Next is the rear section, the section that you will eventually be attaching your seat to. Now, as I was working on my own, I found this part a little bit fiddly, as you have to hold both parts of the section and a screw and a bolt. So if you've got something to give you a hand, this really easy. On your own, it's difficult, but like the rest of the build, once you figure it out, it goes on quite nicely. And as you'll see why in just a moment, do not tighten the lower bolts up completely just yet. Now, my tip for this part of the build is to get yourself a tape measure and measure the distance between the holes, the mounting holes on the bottom of your chair. Now, once you've found out what that number is, then adjust the plate to that width. Once you do it that way, it's a lot easier to line up the holes on the plates with the holes on the bottom of the chair, and it will make attaching the two to each other a lot easier. Now, as long as you measure the spacings correctly, this next bit shouldn't be difficult. It's just a matter of lining up the holes on the mounting plates with the holes on the bottom of the chairs and putting the bolts in. Unless of course, like me, you've got sausage fingers, which then make it a little bit more difficult. But once you're lined up, the bolts should go in. I do also recommend using the slider on the chair to move it backwards and forwards. It'll allow you easier access to the holes. Now the next step is to join the two halves of the rig together. This is done quite simply by adding two bars between the front and rear sections. GT Omega provided with two lengths of bar, I guess for either taller or shorter people. This feature of the ART's design also allows you to adjust the length of the rig at any point, even after you've finished building it. Also, if you ever need to, you can take the rig apart into two sections. Very handy. One of the last things to do in the actual build process is to attach the mounting for the gear shifter. This, nice and easy again, just two bolts to attach the bar to the frame itself, and then another two bolts to attach the mounting plate onto the bar. And, as a little bonus, you can attach this to either side, left or right, depending on which side you prefer to have your gear shifter. Next job for me was to attach the steering wheel. Now, there are plenty of mount holes for various steering wheels, but don't worry, which ones you need are explained very clearly in the instructions. Next, it's time to mount the pedals. Now, these are mounted to the pedal plate, obviously, with 4 bolts. This can be a little fiddly if you're on your own, but once you've got the first one in, the others go on nice and easily. Once you've got all 4 bolts in, then it's just a matter of trial and error to move the pedals forwards or backwards until you find the correct length that's comfortable for you. Now it just took me a couple of times, but eventually I got the right length sorted, and once that's done, make sure to tighten all the bolts up nice and tight. And lastly, you can adjust the angle of the pedal plate so it's at the perfect position for your particular driving style. And the only thing left to do now is tidy up all the cables. Now, GT Omega do provide with 4 cable straps, which are more than adequate, but I just decided to add a few more cable ties myself, as I do like the cables to be nice and tight and out of the way. Nothing left to say now apart from job done. And we'll finish off with just a couple of views of the finished item. Very nice. 1 rig, 1 seat and 1 game ready to go. Thank you very much for watching. I would appreciate it if you hit those like and subscribe buttons, and I will see you in the next video.